Hey, this is Troy from Planet 76. We've got some really good Sixers-focused content coming your way today. Make sure you subscribe to the pod so you can be in the know when we release new content. Enjoy the show. What's going on, Sixers fans? Welcome back to another episode of Planet 76. This is episode 163 of the podcast. And, Michael and I are back to break down some Sixers action. As you know, unless you've been under a rock for a little bit, Sixers have struggled to open up the season. Now officially 10 games in. They literally just finished up about 30 seconds ago in their matchup with the Knicks, the first matchup of the in-season tournament, by the way. And they did fall to the Knicks by a score of 111-99. So Michael and I are going to talk about that game. And just even some recent history with what's been going on with the Sixers. Obviously notable tonight is Joel Embiid's debut. We'll talk about that. Paul George had his best game as a Sixer. We'll get into that. Another Sixer that has been playing very well lately. Back-to-back games of 20-plus, 27 against Charlotte in a win and 23 against the Knicks tonight is none other than Jared McCain. Michael's very excited to get into that, so I'm going to toss it to him just kind of to see where he wants to go with any of that information. Again, Sixers are 2-8. But it was good to see the big fella on the floor tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing I'll say, and for me, the theme for this episode is going to be the fact that, and I think I talked about it last time. I've actually probably been talking about it since the season began a few weeks ago. But at the end of the day, it's going to be hard to take this team seriously in any capacity until we get Embiid and PG playing. Oh, yeah, by the way, Tyrese Maxey is out for 3 weeks, too. So until we see this team fully playing together with a very, very solid stretch of games, I'm talking 10, 12, 15, 20 games of them all playing, I'm not very much inclined to take anything seriously. It's tough to do that when you don't have a full sample size of your whole team playing together, healthy. And the Sixers have not had that. It's been 10 games in the season, and ordinarily this is a point in the season where I'd say, okay, let's see some things we can take away. But a lot of any potential takeaways are totally dismissed because they don't have their full team. So it's hard to have takeaways about a team that isn't really a team because everyone isn't playing together. And obviously we'll touch on some things. You mentioned Jared McCain, someone I'd like to talk about. A couple other guys I'd like to discuss too. But pretty much where I stand is 10 games in. This is usually a point in the season for me on this podcast where I'd say, okay, here's a few things we can look to. But in regards to the team as a whole, there's nothing. There's nothing because the team hasn't been a team. This is not the Sixers. This is a team of basketball players who is missing basically their entire team. And I mean that that's straight up. That's how I mean it because Joel Embiid, as we've talked about multiple times in great length on this podcast, is the Sixers. And literally, if you want to say figuratively, even though it doesn't really matter because he makes up so much of this team, both from the fact that the team is built around him and for the fact that he's just such a phenomenal basketball player. Joel Embiid is the Sixers. So if you don't have Joel Embiid playing, you're not going to really be that good. And we talked about the Sixers being good enough to win without him, and that hasn't quite panned out so far. I would like to think it's just the fact that all the new guys are still getting adjusted to their new situation here. I'd like to think that it's just the simple fact that Tyrese Maxey is the number one option is not good enough, and it's nothing to do with him. It's just the fact that he's not a number one, and I've said that before, and I'm pretty sure you've said that before. He's not a number one, but that's okay. He doesn't have to be. So if he's not, it's okay. He doesn't have to be. He doesn't need to be. That's not the kind of player he is. There's a reason the Sixers have Joel Embiid. There's a reason he's on the team, and he's the number one. So there's some takeaways there in the Sixers not winning much without Embiid, but when it comes to the Sixers as a whole, you can't really say much or think much about this team because they don't have Embiid, they don't have PG, they just got him back. Now Maxey's out for a while. So we're basically starting from zero at this point. obviously you have a better chance to win if Embiid is playing and Maxi's not playing, and especially because Paul George is playing with Embiid. But you need Maxi too. That's just I don't think I have to explain that. So that's where I stand, and I'm just gonna kick it right back to Troy because that's where I'm at. And if you wanna take it, just maybe we could take away, or I'm sorry, maybe we can discuss some of the other guys, or
Yeah.
if you want to give your thoughts on that whole jumbled
Yeah, I mean,
mess, then
no, I think
go
no,
for
it's
it.
good. I think all you said is super
Yeah,
fair. It's just the truth, and it's unfortunate because they are 10 games into the season. It's eight. There's 72 to
right.
go, but you're 10 games in, and it's not just this idea that they haven't had a game where Joel, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey have played together. It's this fact that they haven't played a single minute
Nope.
together. Not one
Nope.
through 10 games. Embiid obviously making his debut in game number 10. Paul George coming back after missing the first few, and then actually playing the first few and now being out. It's crazy. It really is, among other things that are going on with this team, with new players trying to adjust to different roles,
Yeah.
and obviously with with who's going in and out of the starting lineup, who's getting minutes off the bench. Jeff Doughton got a lot of playing time tonight. Obviously, we mentioned Jared McCain, who has really stepped into a role that is really encouraging. So if there's maybe two bright spots from some of these other guys before we focus, a little bit more on that big three. One is obviously Jared McCain, and then especially late, and then Gershon
Dude, I was hoping
has
you
been very
said
good,
him.
right?
I was, I
He's
was
been very good.
silently hoping that you mentioned him. Gershon name drop. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I won't say any more until
No,
we're
so what have
ready.
you liked from him? Because I've liked it, especially late. He's talk about another guy who's he hasn't played in the
Hmm.
NBA in 5 years. Now he's thrust into a role on the Sixers team that's just constantly going up and
Yeah.
down as far as his role, and he played a lot with Embiid tonight too. I don't. Your thoughts on Gershon
Yeah.
before I say too
I think
much?
my thoughts really remain the same of what I said about him before the season began. Nothing's really changed. He is a very fun player. He's a super impactful player. He won't put up big numbers. That's okay, but he's very physical. He's a good rebounder, and I like the fact that he can play
Hmm.
with Embiid, even though obviously I'm not an NBA coach. I'm never gonna be an NBA coach. But my first inclination would not be to play him next to Embiid, just because I feel like you have to
Hmm.
fix the lineups a certain way. Whatever, we won't get into that. But I do like the fact that you can put him next to Embiid because in Sixers teams of the past, you really couldn't put anybody next to Embiid, and obviously that's not a slight to Embiid. It's just the fact that you couldn't do that, and it would have to be a shooter. And even though Gershon is the total opposite of a shooter, even though he can shoot threes maybe once or twice a game, he's not a shooter.
Hmm.
But the fact that he still brings you flexibility because he can kind of play outside the paint still. He can grab the ball, one,
Hmm.
two dribbles, attack the basket. So he still spaces the floor enough to make it work with Embiid because he's still a guy who can move and kind of play in the corner because he can also cut baseline to the basket, and that still helps with spacing too. So you can kind of do that with him and Embiid, which is good, which is inherently a good thing. And
Hmm.
again, a lot of the stuff we talked about with Gershon in the offseason is the same stuff that applies now. Nothing's changed. He's solid. He's very
We're just
good.
seeing it.
Yeah, we're actually exactly we're seeing it. Everything we've talked about, we're seeing it right now. But he's very
Yeah, and
good. He's a very solid player.
his his worst game so far was this game
Yeah.
tonight against the Knicks, 1 of 7 shooting. Again, that featured a decent amount of time with Embiid on the
Yeah.
floor as well. So, but just looking at his, again, box score numbers, he's had double digits in 4 out of 10 games. He's been at 9 twice and 8 another time. So, he shot the ball pretty well. So far on the season from three. I mean, against Phoenix, I shot 11,
Mm.
5 for 11 in that game. He had 20 against Charlotte in the overtime win. Funny enough, Sixers' 2 wins on the season are both overtime victories. One against
The
Indiana and one against Charlotte. So it's just,
the
that Charlotte game, LaMelo hit the three to send it to OT with like
yeah.
3 or 4 seconds, and I was like, man, we cannot catch a break. And that's just the way the season's gone so far. But um,
Real
I
quick,
don't.
I just
And
want one more note on Gershon, real quick.
mhm.
So the points wise, he's not going to score a lot of points. Even though, wow, he had 19 on Monday. Is that real?
Yeah, 19
That's
against. Yeah.
crazy. But the rebounding is going to be huge with Gershon. He's
Hmm.
two back-to-back 8+ rebound games. In fact, he just had 8 rebounds, no more than that, against Charlotte and tonight against New York. 7 on Monday against Phoenix, and then 5 last Friday against the Lakers. Well, last Monday against Phoenix and last Friday
Hmm.
against the Lakers. So rebounding is going to be something that he brings a lot of, and that's something that one was a need for them in the offseason after all the acquisitions they made, but two, just a need in general. Your team needs guys who can rebound the ball, and Gershon gives you a big boost there. Again, it all comes down. It all factors into his physicality. The fact that he's just a big dude, and even though he's not
Yep.
super tall, the physicality and his what am I trying to say? His build and his strength help that, and they add to his ability to rebound the ball. So even though he's not super tall, he can still impact the game from a rebounding perspective,
Hmm.
and he can definitely, like, he's doing it right now. He's carving out a nice role for himself on the floor every night because rebounding is a really valuable skill. So if you can do it, you're probably going to get some minutes, and he has. He
Yeah,
definitely
agreed.
has.
He's been active.
Mm-hmm.
He's been active, which is what you want from someone playing that role that he's in. Um, so again, 2-8,
Mm-hmm.
not what we want,
No.
but there's no panic button in sight. They're in a hole certainly, but that hole is, I think I can confidently say, due in large part to just the circumstances that they found themselves in with these
Yeah.
star players that have been out. And um, I want to ask kind of just two more things. One, we mentioned him already, but Jared McCain, what are you seeing from him that's allowing him to be successful? I'll give a couple things. I mean, obviously, he has a pretty quick release from three.
Yep.
He can knock down shots. We knew that, but it seems like every time they mention him, they mention his strength, and kind of his ability to just create for himself. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He's not Tyrese Maxey kind of speed, but he has an ability to get the shots that he wants. He has an ability to drive to the hoop. He's a little more athletic, I think, than I thought too. Like, just truth in advertising. I don't know what you're
Yeah.
seeing from him, especially late, that you've been encouraged by.
Well, for starters, the 3-point shooting, and that's something that we talked about in the offseason, and I specifically talked about in the offseason. He shot about 6 or 7 threes at Duke, and you mentioned it just now. Perfectly said, by the way. Quick release, really quick release. He can shoot the ball quickly. He can get the ball out of his
Hmm.
hands quickly. And if you're a shooter in the NBA, or if you're going to be a shooter in the NBA, you have to be able to shoot a lot and shoot quickly. So you have to be able to shoot, or I'm sorry, you have to be able to take shots often and quickly. And he's been
Hmm.
doing that. Even though he was 3 for 8 2 nights ago from three, that's still pretty good. That's 38%, and the 3-point attempts is very good volume. He shot 4 for 9 on the 8th, so against the Lakers again last Friday, I guess that was. 4 for 9 is 44%. Again, fantastic. He only shot 1 3 the night before, 1 3 the night before. But the thing is, though, too, he only played 3 minutes on Wednesday night, last Monday against the Grizzlies. I forget
Hmm.
when that was. So with more minutes played comes more threes for Jared McCain, and that's exactly what you want. If he's in the game, the main thing you want him doing is shooting threes. Like you said, you made a good point. He has sort of a shiftiness about him, and that also helps
Yeah.
too because he can get to the basket pretty well, and that's something that I didn't know about him beforehand.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very valuable. If you're a guard and you can get to the rim, usually guards are small. We know this. So if you're a small guard, you can get to the rim and generate rim pressure. That's really important. And that's why Tyrese Maxey is so productive because he's a small guard, but his speed and quickness allows him to get to the rim and put pressure on the rim and force the defense to make adjustments to what he's doing. So if Jared McCain can kind of tap into that a little bit, that also adds another dimension to his game that I don't really know if it was there during his Duke time 6 months ago, whatever it was. That's something I'm
Hmm.
going to have to look into more. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter too much because if that's something he can do reliably and do often, that's really big and that's going to add a lot to his game.
Yeah, yeah. The only thing I'll add to that is tonight alone. I mean, it's easy to say a guy looks like he's getting more
Yeah.
confident when he's starting to play
I
better,
still wish
but
the
he
Sixers
just
took Dalton Kincaid, though. Or what's his name? Dalton
don't
Connect.
connect.
I still
Yeah,
wish the Sixers took Dalton Connect. I'm not going to lie. Full
was he
transparency.
avail? He was available.
He was
Was he available?
available. He was.
Ooh,
He
yikes.
was. I'm
Yeah,
cool with the Jared McCain pick, but if it was up to me, I still would have
connect's good.
chose Dalton Connect. I like him a lot too. I
Yeah.
I would have chosen Dalton Connect. I'm not gonna lie. That's all. I'm done.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, but tonight against the Knicks, his confidence was there.
Hmm.
You know, he again went over 20 points, but there were three plays, if I can remember them all correctly. I know one, he attacked Jericho Sims, the most athletic guy in the
Well, Jericho
gym,
Sims
probably.
stinks though.
Yeah, but he attacked. It was one
He
on one like a fast
sucks.
break. Sims was under the rim, who can jump out of the
Yeah,
gym,
that's fair.
and McCain missed the layup, but like he went at him.
Mm,
Like I was impressed by that. I
yeah.
didn't know that. I didn't expect that. And then there was another one.
There's
I
there's
think he
there's an
got fouled
element of
like
fearlessness too, which is really important for
yes, that's
small
what I'm speaking
guards.
to. Yeah, he attacked the rim on. I don't remember who it was. It wasn't Sims this time, but he got to the free throw line and
Yeah.
out, and he tried to dunk on whoever it was. And then there was another one. He attacked the rim, got an and one. You know, he's just.
Yeah.
I didn't. We didn't see that super early in the season, and now we're 10 games in, and he's just looking more comfortable in that role. All right. We'd be foolish to not mention a little bit more detail about the big fella.
Mm.
Came back in game 10 after injury and then serving a suspension. He's back, and I'll say this. Um, I mean, tonight's game against the Knicks was a very good game.
Hmm.
You know, you look at the first two quarters, it was a 4 point game at halftime. It was 27-25 in both quarters. Third quarter, Sixers won 25-24, so they're down just one heading into the fourth quarter. And then it was a start to the fourth quarter to forget for the Sixers. Knicks went on a 13 or 14-0 run, and from that point, Sixers couldn't quite crawl back into it. But it was a pretty good basketball game to watch.
Yeah.
And my thoughts now, Embiid didn't play well. You know what I mean? He didn't shoot well, especially in the
Yeah.
first half. But he did grow. It seemed more comfortable. He started to get into it with the fans. Started to be a little more aggressive in the second halves, things like that. But so I don't know if you agree with all that. But the one thing I do think is absolutely true is like this was an offense that I liked the look of it more so with Embiid on the floor and defensively.
Yeah, of course.
Because the first 9 games were like some points it was like just horrendous to watch because like it's like they're missing something. Oh yeah, they're missing Joel Embiid, and tonight it was just
the
like yeah,
the
this offense is built around him and it looked like it. So
the one thing that always confuses me, but the one thing that Sixers fans often forget is that you're gonna look way worse on both ends of the floor with no Joel Embiid. It's such a simple concept, but for some people, a lot of people, it seems so hard to grasp. You're going to be worse, drastically
yeah,
worse, without your best player, especially when your best player is Joel Embiid, is like a top three player in the league, and you don't have him, yeah, you're going to look horrible. And that's what's happening. Obviously, like I said earlier, I kind of overestimated their ability to win without him. However, the season's still early, so maybe we'll see some of that. But at the end of the day, you're still not going to be good without him. You're still not going to be a legit team without
hmm
him. You can win some games, maybe make things chippy, but you're not going to actually be a legit team without him. And I just people seem to forget that. Oh my gosh, the season's over. 10 games into the season, we're 2-8. Okay, yeah, they're not looking good right now, but there's 82 games in the season, and that's another
hmm
thing. Every season, oh my gosh, they're 2 and whatever, they're 4-5. It's an 82 game season. This is not the NFL. It's
hmm
not 17 games and the season's over. I don't know
yeah,
what the mentality is behind hitting the panic button at 20, 25, even 30 games. The season is such a long season. We have until March or April for the season to unfold. There's so much time left. Sure, they're digging themselves a pretty fairly sized hole right now, but at the end of the day, there's so much time to make up for that. Let's get the losing out of the way now. Let's get the injuries and the rest out of the way now so that the team can win and everybody can be back and healthy. Obviously, Embiid's not going to still play back-to-backs, which is fine. But let's get the unnecessary missed time and the weird injuries out of the way now so that they can actually get into gear and be ready for the middle and then the second half of the season. Like, there's so much time in the season still. It's only been 10 games. The season isn't even a month old yet. It's hardly even 3 weeks old yet.
Yeah, it's great. You put things in perspective and things tend to cool down a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we talked about it last time too. I think things are so heightened regarding the Sixers right now and how they're playing because it is the start of the season.
Yeah.
You think about it. I mean, how many teams over the course of 82 games are going to have a 10-game stretch that isn't pretty?
Mm-hmm.
Probably most, if not all, teams are going to go through a stretch that's hard and they lose a lot of games.
Yep.
And right now it just happens to be that the Sixers are 2-8 through the first 10, and so it's heightened because it's the beginning of the season. I fully don't expect every single 10-game stretch of the season for them to go 2-8,
right?
Because that would be pretty bad, right? That would be historic. That'd be back with the before Joel Embiid era Sixers, and so just got to hold on to our hats a little bit and remember what this team's capable of. Remember the fact that we have not seen this team yet.
Yeah.
Just haven't. You said it. You said it to start. We'll say it to end. We have not seen the 76ers.
We have not. They have. They're missing. They're $5,000 reward if you can find the 76ers.
I love that. But again, I think the word I was looking for earlier with seeing Joel on the floor is that it was just a breath of fresh air. It was refreshing to see the fact that he makes a difference. He didn't play well, and he made a difference. He didn't play well, and we were in this game with a very good Knicks team.
Sorry.
So,
this is what I'm saying. Like, I talked about it last year, too. Joel Embiid just being there. He could score 0 points and get 0 rebounds and have 0 everything. But him being on the court changes everything for the Sixers. And it's because for one reason, well, multiple reasons, but mostly one reason and one reason only. Because when you are playing the Sixers and you have to play against Joel Embiid in any capacity, you have to commit a very great amount of defensive attention to him. It doesn't matter what he's doing. It doesn't matter if he's over 18. You're not going to not guard Joel Embiid. So him being on the floor, just a total traffic cone even. He doesn't even have to play well for the night. The fact that he's there changes everything because everybody on the Sixers gets a break because all of the attention that was on those guys, outside of Paul George and perhaps Tyrese Maxey, is now going to be on Joel Embiid. So everybody else's job gets so much easier because he's there, just because he's standing on the court and playing 20, 25 minutes. He doesn't even have to play well.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to end right there, right? Because that's the point.
Okay.
That's the point of this episode. Sixers are 2-8. Joel did not play well tonight, but they still were in the game in the fourth quarter against the Knicks team. So, and they didn't have Tyrese Maxey. Joel's going to get it rolling, and this team's going to look very good. It's just not yet. Yeah. Hold on. We'll get there. Whew. You feel good? I feel better.
I feel good. I just want to see them normal. I just want to see this team as it's supposed to be.
And I think that's where a lot of it comes from for a lot of people, and rightfully so. But we're always gonna keep things real and
we try.
Reliable or whatever here on Planet 76. So, all right, that's wraps. Planet 76, episode 163. We'll see you next time. Peace. You just listened to an episode of the Planet 76 podcast. Hey, we appreciate you joining us for this episode. Whatever platform you're on, why don't you hit that subscribe button for us, and we'll see you next time.